I was 18 the night my mother tore my MIT acceptance letter in half. She didn't yell. That was the part one hadn't prepared for. I had braced for shouting. What I got instead was calm. "This is not who we are," she said. And the letter fell in pieces onto the dining table like she was discarding trash. I taped it back together at 4 in the morning in our bathroom with my mother's own roll of Scotch tape, the one she kept in the medicine cabinet. By 5 I was gone. What I brought back with me 7 years later was something my mother still cannot talk about. My name is Teresa Davis, and I'm here to tell you what it costs when a family decides who you're allowed to be. The tradition started before I was born. In the Davis family, the eldest daughter doesn't leave. She stays close. She learns to cook from the recipe box on the kitchen counter. Oak wood, our last name carved into the lid. She marries someone from town or nearby. She becomes the kind of woman her mother became, and her mother before her. My grandmother followed it. My mother followed it. My Aunt Carol followed it. I was supposed to follow it too. No one ever asked me to agree. That's not how it worked in our house. I grew up in a brick row house in Pottsville, Pennsylvania. 2 bedrooms upstairs, kitchen at the back. My father worked at a tool shop 6 minutes away by car. My mother stayed home. When I was 16, I started finding the library. It was on the 2nd floor of Garfield Avenue High School, behind the encyclopedias, where nobody looked. Saturday mornings I took tests. The SAT in October. The ACT in November. My mother thought I was working at the Patel family bakery down the street for cash under the table. I was actually on a bus to Philadelphia taking another test. I told no one my scores. I sent 7 applications in secret. One of them was to MIT. The thick envelope arrived on a Thursday in March. I almost didn't make it upstairs fast enough. MIT in red letters across the corner. My hands were shaking when I read it. Full scholarship. Room and board included. Everything paid. I had a plan for if this happened. The plan was to decline. To keep the acceptance letter hidden in the same place where I kept the test scores. To just know that I could have gone. The plan wasn't supposed to account for full need-based funding. The plan wasn't supposed to account for how much that changed everything. I read the letter 11 times. I folded it in thirds and tucked it under the bath mat. My mother found it 3 days later. She was folding laundry on the dining table when I came home from school. White towels in one stack. Dish rags in another. She had the letter next to the dish rags. She didn't look up while she folded. Bathroom trash isn't private, Teresa. I hadn't thrown it away. She had found it in there anyway, unfolded it, read it and set it on the table to wait for me. I started to explain. Full scholarship. No debt. 4 years of room and board. The math of it. The lack of cost to her. She picked up the letter and looked at me, and then she tore it slowly down the middle. All 3 pages. Then she turned the halves and tore them again. 4 rectangles of cream-colored paper fell onto the dining table. The red logo cut clean in half. "This is not who we are," she said. The whole thing took maybe 7 seconds. She hadn't raised her voice. My grandmother in the front room didn't look away from her television. My sister Maddie, 13 years old, was holding the banister upstairs with both hands. My father in the garage 2 rooms away heard nothing. By 7:30 that evening, my grandmother had wheeled herself into the dining room. My Aunt Carol had driven over from 8 blocks away. The 4 pieces of the letter were still on the table. No one had moved them. They were the centerpiece. My grandmother spoke first. "The eldest daughter stays. Always has. Your mother stayed. Your aunt stayed. You stay." I said. "MIT offered me a full ride." "Then they wasted a letter," my grandmother said. "No one asked me what I wanted. No one asked me what my test scores were. They had decided the night I was born who I was supposed to be." The conversation lasted until 8:15 p.m. At 10 p.m. I went upstairs. I didn't sleep. I waited. At 1:40 a.m., the house was quiet enough that I could hear the refrigerator hum from the kitchen. I went downstairs. The 4 pieces were still on the table. My mother had left them as a lesson. I gathered them. I went to the bathroom, locked the door, and sat on the tile floor with my back against the tub. Scotch tape. My mother kept it in the medicine cabinet for prescription bottle labels. I pulled the strip slow, the way I had seen her do it 100 times. I taped each piece like a stitch. The sentence about the scholarship ran across 2 tape lines. I could still read it. I folded the letter into thirds. I put it in the inside chest pocket of my denim jacket. I went to my room, opened the bottom drawer of my dresser, and counted out $340 in cash from 2 years of babysitting. I had a Greyhound schedule I'd printed at the library folded into 8ths. Boston route. 5:22 a.m. I wrote Maddie a half-page note. I told her I loved her. I told her I would write. I told her not to be afraid. I slipped it under her pillow at 3:40 a.m. At 4:11 a.m., I was standing in the garage doorway with my coat on and my duffel at my feet. My father was at his workbench, hands greasy, staring at a carburetor that wasn't getting fixed. He had been waiting. He turned. He looked at me the way he looked at customers who came in with problems they couldn't name. He nodded once. "Your mother loves you, Teresa." "I know." He went into his back pocket and took out his wallet. He counted out 4 $20 bills. He held them out. I took them. $80. He had decided somewhere between dinner and 4 a.m. to give me every dollar he had. "For the bus," he said. I put the bills inside my jacket with the letter. He didn't ask where I was going. He didn't need to. He had heard my mother on the phone with Carol. He had heard the tearing through the wall. He had been awake the same way I had been awake. He turned back to the carburetor. I picked up my duffel and walked out the side door into the alley. It was 31 degrees. I could see my breath. The bus pulled out at 5:22 a.m. I took a window seat behind the driver. I watched our street slide past, 3 blocks east of the station. Our house. The kitchen light was on. The upstairs was dark. My mother was at the kitchen window with a coffee cup. I'm almost sure she was watching the bus go. Maddie's bedroom light came on at 5:30. I watched it for 2 minutes and 12 seconds. Then it went out. I arrived at MIT at 6:54 p.m. and sat on the floor outside the office of first-generation student programs until a woman named Dr. Marina Ortiz found me there on Monday morning. She bought me eggs and toast and orange juice without asking questions. She looked at the taped letter for a long time. She turned it over. She turned it back. "Frame it," she said. "Frame it cheap, but keep it where you can see it." That was my first week at MIT. The years that followed were the kind of years where you work 18 credit hours each semester, 20 hours a week in the materials science lab, another 12 at the dining hall. My GPA climbed. I emailed my mother twice. Neither email got a reply. I stopped emailing. In October of sophomore year, my sister Maddie sent me an email from her Yahoo account. The subject line said, "Mom." The body was 3 sentences. She told me that our mother had gone to church and told the parishioners that I had passed away, that I was dead, that my Aunt Carol had confirmed it, that people believed it. I read that email 4 times. Then I closed the laptop and went to bed. In junior year, a phone call came through a payphone in the MIT Student Center. It was my father. My grandmother had a stroke. She was home. She was asking for me. He had called 3 weeks after it happened, surely with my mother standing nearby. I told him I was in finals. I wasn't. Finals were 6 weeks away. But the lie gave both of us an exit. It let me hang up without saying no. Senior year came. I finished my degree. I stayed for a doctorate. I moved off campus to a studio apartment over a sandwich shop on Massachusetts Avenue. In the kitchen, I unfolded that taped letter for the first time in 2.5 years. The folds were soft. The tape was browning. I smoothed the creases and slid it behind glass in a cheap frame from the CVS. I hung it on the wall above my desk. Every day I sat at that desk, I looked up. Every day I looked up. I remembered I had taped it back together. I walked across the stage at graduation in May. The weather was clear. The ceremony was beautiful. I had sent 4 invitations to Pottsville 3 months earlier. My mother's came back stamped return to sender. She had opened it, read it, and put it back in the mailbox with different tape. My father's was opened but never answered. My grandmother used it as a coaster. Maddie sent me a photograph 6 months later. The water ring was perfect, like she had centered the mug on purpose. After graduation, I stayed in Cambridge. I started my doctorate in the same lab. The company that spun out of our research, the one that made sensors for hospitals, the one that filed patents, that company gave me equity, an ownership stake. By the time I was 25, that stake was worth more than my parents would make in a lifetime. I told nobody in Pottsville. 2 years after graduation, a package arrived. Brown cardboard box. Pottsville postmark. No return address. Inside was my grandmother's wooden recipe box. The oak one. Davis carved across the lid. The varnish was darker than I remembered. The hinge was stiffer. I lifted the lid. The recipe cards were still there. Under the cards, under the cardboard insert, lying flat against the bottom, was a yellowed manila envelope. Inside that envelope were 3 things. A high school transcript from Pottsville Area High School, class of 1991. The name on the transcript was Linda Marie Walsh. That was my mother. Her GPA was 3.94. National Honor Society. Senior class secretary. Top 5%. An acceptance letter from Lehigh Carbon Community College. Registered nurse program. Fall semester 1991. Partial scholarship. The letter was dated April 3, 1991. And the same acceptance letter in 2 pieces, taped back together with brittle yellowed masking tape. The tape had cracked along the spine. The 2 pieces were still attached, but the tape had given up sometime in the last 30 years. My mother had taped her own scholarship letter back together in 1991. And then she had kept it for 33 years. I sat on my kitchen floor for 2 hours with those 3 pieces of paper spread in front of me. My mother had been 18 in 1991. She had the same grade point average I had. She had been senior class secretary. She had applied to nursing school on her own. Someone had torn her letter. My grandmother almost certainly. The same grandmother who had sat in the front room with the television volume low, insisting that the eldest daughter stays. My mother had taped the letter back together with masking tape, which was what was available in 1991. She had hidden it at the bottom of the wooden recipe box. She had stayed. She had married my father in October 1992. She had had me in 2002. She had spent 25 years cooking from the cards above the letter. Then she had torn mine. I understood the math. I did not forgive it. Understanding and forgiveness are not the same thing. The understanding came slowly. I did not cry. I made coffee. I sat at my kitchen counter and worked through the math the way I worked through problem sets. My mother had been the eldest daughter. She had been smart. She had been accepted to nursing school. Someone had torn her letter. She had taped it back together. She had hidden it inside the recipe box and never told anyone. She had spent 33 years cooking from the cards above her own buried future. And then she had torn mine. The understanding said, she is also someone's eldest daughter. The not forgiving said, she had the tape in her hand and she chose to repeat it anyway. These 2 thoughts did not cancel each other out. They lived together. At the bottom of the manila envelope was a photograph. 4x6. Color. Faded a little. My mother at 18 standing on the porch of a building in Schneckville, wearing nursing scrubs that didn't yet belong to her. She was holding a Lehigh Carbon brochure. She was smiling. I had looked at every photograph in our family albums. She was in maybe 40 of them. In none of those 40 did she smile the way she was smiling in that photograph. I had never seen her smile like that in my entire life. I kept that photograph on my kitchen counter for 6 months. Then I made a decision. My father called on a Tuesday in October. My niece Haley was 5 years old. She was smart. She had her mother's eyes and she didn't know who I was. My grandmother was turning 80 in 6 weeks. The family was gathering. My father called to tell me something else. They were laying the foundation. Already. At Easter, my Aunt Carol had started talking to Haley about staying, about the tradition, about the way Davis women didn't chase, didn't drift, didn't get above themselves. My father said, "They're starting on Haley." He said, "She's 5. He said, "I should have called sooner. 7 years sooner." I sat in my lab that night and I made a list on a yellow legal pad the way I made every list that mattered. Numbered. Falsifiable. Controlled. Item 1. What do I want to say? Answer: nothing. Actions only. Item 2. What do I want to leave behind? Answer: documents. Proof. A future that's open. Item 3. Who is the audience? Answer: Haley. Only Haley. Everyone else is scaffolding. Item 4. When? Answer: my grandmother's 80th Saturday in November. 30 witnesses. Public enough that the conversation cannot later be denied. Item 5. Funding? Answer: a trust. Real. Notarized. Before I arrive, I called a lawyer in Boston. Her name was Sarah Klein. She charged $380 an hour. I told her what I wanted. A trust funded by liquidated equity. $250,000. For any child in my family, male or female, who wanted college, or trade school, or any accredited program. Haley would be eligible at 17. So would her brother. So would any child born after her. Sarah said, "You want the boys included." I said, "The tradition was gendered. The trust isn't. That's the point." She drafted the document in 8 days. The trust was notarized and signed. The money was wired. I was the grantor. Sarah was the trustee. The Davis Daughters Education Trust, with a footnote clarifying that it covered all descendants. I kept the daughters in the title on purpose. I packed on the Friday before the party. The briefcase was brown leather, a graduation gift. It was small. Inside it, in order from bottom to top, the trust document in its cream-colored envelope, my PhD candidate status letter, my bachelor's diploma, the photograph of my mother at 18, the one with the smile, tucked inside the diploma folio. On top of everything, folded in thirds, the taped MIT letter. I had taken it out of the frame that morning. I dressed on Saturday at 5 a.m. dark navy slacks, white button-down shirt, black flats, hair down, no makeup, no jewelry. The only shine on my person was the brass buckle of the briefcase. I looked like the engineer I was. No costume, no statement. The briefcase did the talking. Pottsville on a Saturday morning in November looked the way it had always looked. Brick row houses. Dollar General. 2 empty storefronts where a bakery and hardware store used to be. The Greyhound station was still there. The cinder block waiting room. The same pumps outside, newer now. I parked across the street from the Davis house at 10:14 a.m. The mailbox had been repainted blue. I sat in the rental and counted to 100. At 10:42 a.m. I walked up the porch steps and knocked twice with the back of my middle knuckle, the way my father knocked. My mother opened the door at 3/4 width. She was wearing an apron. Her hair was almost half gray. She hadn't lost or gained weight. Her face looked the same and not the same. The way faces look when 7 years have passed and you haven't seen them. She didn't say come in. She didn't say hello. she said. You're early by 18 minutes. The party starts at noon, I said. Stay in the car. She closed the door. Cars started arriving at 11:15. I watched from the rental. My Aunt Carol and her husband. My sister Maddie in a green Subaru, lifting two children out of the car with practiced efficiency. Haley in a pink dress and white tights and a small navy cardigan. She was holding a plastic toy horse in her left hand. Her hair was the same blonde mine had been. At 11:53, Maddie crossed the street and came to my window. She said, I sent you the box. I know, I said. Thank you. Are you going to make a scene? No, I said. I'm going to make an option. She nodded and walked back across the street. I walked in at 12:08 p.m. 30 faces, folding chairs, plastic tablecloths, a cake with yellow piping that read, Happy 80th. The recipe box was on the kitchen counter. Davis carved across the lid. Conversation stopped when I opened the door. My grandmother looked up from her green armchair. She was wearing reading glasses. She said, Teresa, you look thin. Hi, Grandma. My father hugged me for 2 seconds. He said nothing. He went back to the kitchen. I sat on a folding chair near the front window. I put the briefcase on the carpet beside my left foot. Haley was on the carpet 10 feet away, rolling her plastic horse along the edge of the coffee table. She didn't know who I was. At 12:31 p.m., my mother picked up a butter knife and tapped it against the rim of a water glass. The room went quiet. My grandmother stood up with the help of her cane. She looked down at Haley. Davis women stay close, she said. We don't chase. We don't drift. We don't get above ourselves. My Linda stayed. My Carol stayed. My Maddie stayed. And one day soon my Haley will stay too. She lifted her water glass to staying. 28 glasses went up. 28 voices said the words. My Aunt Carol's was the loudest. My father lifted his coffee cup halfway to his chest. He didn't say the words. I did not lift my glass. My hand stayed folded in my lap. Maddie lifted hers to chest height. She held it there without saying anything. Then she set it back down. My mother was looking at me. The applause lasted 9 seconds. Conversation came back. My grandmother sat down hard. My mother crossed the room. She came to the kitchen doorway nearest my chair. She kept her voice low. Don't. Whatever you're thinking, don't. I looked up at her. I'm not going to fight with you. I'm going to put something in front of Haley and I'm going to leave. You can do whatever you want after I'm gone. My mother's left hand went to her hip. In her right was a dish towel. The same brand of cotton. Same fold we had been taught since childhood. She turned and went back into the kitchen. I stood up. I picked up the briefcase. I walked across the carpet toward Haley. The room got quiet again. I knelt on one knee in front of my niece. She looked up at me with the plastic horse in her left hand. She had her mother's eyes. She did not know who I was. Hi, Haley. I'm your Aunt Teresa. Okay, she said. I opened the briefcase. I took out the taped MIT letter. I unfolded it. I laid it on the carpet between us. The Browning tape was visible. The scholarship sentence was still legible. This is from when I was 18. Grandma might tell you about it someday. If she doesn't, your mom will. If you ever want to go to school anywhere, high school, college, trade school, anywhere, this letter says someone said yes to me. Someone will say yes to you too. You don't have to take the same letter. You'll get your own. From the kitchen doorway, my mother said, Teresa, stop. I kept my eyes on Haley. I reached into the briefcase. I took out the cream-colored envelope. I stood up. I walked to the coffee table where my grandmother's cake plate sat. I laid the envelope down. This is $250,000, I said. It's in a trust. It's for any girl in this family who wants school. And any boy. Your brother Cody too. I looked at Maddie. Cody too. My Aunt Carol stood up from her dining chair. You can't do this here. I did it 3 weeks ago, I said. I'm just telling you now. My grandmother rose from her armchair. The cane took her weight. Her face was red. Teresa Marie Davis, the eldest daughter, stays. I looked at my mother, not my grandmother. I said the same thing she had said to me at my dining table 7 years ago. Same volume. Same tempo. No theatrics. Then I'm not who we are. The room went silent. Haley picked up the taped letter from the carpet. She held it up to her mother. Maddie knelt beside her daughter. She took the letter from Haley's hand and held it against her chest. My mother stepped into the dining room. She looked at the cream-colored envelope for 4 seconds. She picked it up. She turned it over. She turned it back. She set it down. Where did you? She said. Where? I waited. Frank, where did she? My father in the kitchen doorway set his coffee cup on the counter behind him. He did not look at her. He said nothing. My mother turned back to me. You went through my things. You stole. Maddie found the box in the attic, I said. Maddie sent it to me. I read what was in it. Maddie, still on the carpet, did not stand up. She did not deny it. She did not confirm it. She held the letter against her chest. My mother's voice came up. It was loud now, a kind of loud my mother almost never reached. I picked up the briefcase. I walked to the door. I put my hand on the knob. I turned to my mother one last time. I said one thing. I taped mine too, Mom. Same brand of tape. I opened the door and I walked out. From the porch, I could hear my mother's voice rising, a sound I had not heard her make before. I did not look back. I sat in the rental at the curb with the engine off. A knock on the window. Maddie. She was holding the taped letter and the cream-colored envelope. Her breath was white in the cold air. Haley wants to keep this, she said. She can. The trust. Is it real? Notarized. Sarah Klein, Boston. She nodded. Are you coming back? I don't know yet. She walked back across the street. The door closed. 3 months later, my father called on a Wednesday. Haley had started a Saturday science program at Lehigh Carbon Community College, the same college that had sent my mother her acceptance letter in 1991. Maddie had used the trust to register her. 6 Saturdays. 5 hours each. Haley wanted to write to me. Could Maddie send my address? Yes, I said. The envelope arrived 3 weeks later. Pink paper. Maddie's handwriting on the outside. Inside, 2 pieces. The first was a letter in crayon. Pink and red. 6 lines. Dear Aunt Teresa, Mom said you went to MIT. I am drawing a building. The building has my name on it. I am 5. Love, Haley. The second was a drawing. A red brick building. 3 stories. 6 windows. Across the top in red crayon, Haley. Folded inside the drawing was the original taped MIT letter. The same one I had laid on the carpet. The tape browning. The fold soft. On the back of the bottom third, Haley had stuck a yellow post-it note. 1 sentence in Maddie's handwriting, dictated by Haley. I'm done with this one. I'll write my own. I put the drawing on my refrigerator. I put the letter back in the frame. I hung the frame above my desk. The tape is still browning. The browning has reached the scholarship sentence. The sentence is still legible. I learned something at my grandmother's 80th that I should have learned when my mother tore my letter. The people who tell you who you are will tell you for as long as you let them. The only way to answer is to be someone else. Quietly. Without arguing. Until they have to look at you and decide whether to look away or look up. My mother is still deciding. That's my story. 1 torn letter. 1 roll of Scotch tape. And a 5-year-old girl in a red brick building she hasn't built yet. But she will.